Hello boys and girls, Adam Nicholas here for WhatCulture Wrestling, and yes, it is that time of the year, it's brand warfare time, where red takes on blue to determine who is the best brand in WWE, but that's not necessarily what we're here to focus on. We're here to focus on how they dressed on the night. And yes, now I know what you're thinking, Adam, this is going to be a boring video because it's just going to be, she was wearing blue and he was wearing red. And you know what? You're only 50% wrong, because I guess it's kind of impossible for us to avoid a list full of blue and red attires, but we've managed to find a few inside that list of various different changes on red and blue that some of them point towards character moments, you know, characters who've used that colour scheme to suggest things a little bit further down the line. But on top of that, we've also managed to pull a few cherries who gave a little wink and a nod towards your pal and mine, The Undertaker, who of course retired last night. Forever? Question mark? Who knows? But I tell you what, there's no questions about the people who are on this list and the sartorial excellence that they brought to Survivor Series 2020. So with that in mind, my name is Adam Nicholas. This is WhatCulture Wrestling, and these are the 10 hidden meanings behind WWE Survivor Series 2020 attires. Number 10, Chad Gable, American Alpha. Now, to quote the great man Simon Miller, I think it would be fair to say that Chad Gable has had quite a few ups and downs on his main roster career, but he seems to have kicked the Shorty G gimmick and is back towards what we know and love, the Chad Gable character that we all care about, who's actually just an amazing wrestler. He was, of course, the self-appointed leader of the Alpha Academy, and to be honest, it seems to be doing him the world of good. He managed to get Otis out of a mid-career funk, and on top of that, he also seems to be going back to his roots to channel his attire for Survivor Series this year, because it seemed like it was a little wink and nod to his old tag team, American Alpha. You remember the singlets that he and Jason Jordan both used to wear? Oh, so spectacularly. What a fantastic tag team they were. Well, it looks like he's gone back to that kind of look. This was very blue, very red. It had a little star on there. Kind of think we might have been channeling Kurt Angle a little bit. Some comparisons made between American Alpha and Team Angle on more than one occasion. And this look was one that probably pleased Jason Jordan, who, a little tidbit for you as well, was the producer of last night's match between Bobby Lashley and Sami Zayn. What do you know? Number 9, The Miz and John Morrison, the faces of Monday Night Raw. Now, I think it's fair to say The Miz has a fairly long tenured history of being a bit of a, how do we say this? A bit of an arse kisser, truth be told, within WWE when it comes to the brass in WWE, when it comes to the brand itself, and when it comes to all things the commercial and corporate side. And this seems to be no different, because in a kick-off battle royal full of people who are on both Raw and SmackDown, they may have been wearing attires that kind of, you know, suggested what brand they were on, but none of them were wearing the t-shirts apart from The Miz and John Morrison. They proudly sported the Raw logo across the front of their tops, but of course, more importantly, the USA Network logo on the back, which was included on this year's t-shirt. And of course, The Miz has his TV show, The Miz and Mrs., on that network. You see, the man is always out for himself. There was a whole bunch of people in that match. The only other one who had anything remotely to do with brand warfare, or certainly WWE's handed out brand warfare clothing, was Dolph Ziggler, who was wearing his SmackDown cap backwards. You know, the one that he made famous a couple of years back. And to be honest, even that, I think, is just him being a bit ironic. Not quite like The Miz, who's just doing his best to get in the good books. Number 8, Ricochet, Daredevil. Now, you've probably lost count of the amount of times we've done one of these videos where Ricochet is on this list and he happens to be sporting some attire that is a wink or a nod to a superhero. Well, Survivor Series 2020 was no different. He was sporting the colour scheme and look of one Daredevil, the Marvel Comics superhero, and yes, it also kind of fit into the Monday night colour scheme, just about. Burgundy and red are pretty close, but maybe that was on purpose, because it feels kind of like Ricochet hasn't really found his place on Monday Night Raw, and he's had a bunch of issues with the likes of the Hurt Business and Retribution, to name a few, and the guy is now finding himself working alone pretty much at this point. Much like Daredevil. You see there's some comparisons here? Yes, alright, you might be thinking that's a bit of a reach, and whether or not he might have been dressed as the man without fear is one thing, but one thing he was left with at the end of the night was an absolute knee to the face and kicking out of the Battle Royal by one Shelton Benjamin, which should probably tell you how things are going for Ricochet right about now. Number 7, AJ Styles, Team Captain. Alright, now this one is probably going to be the most look, that person's wearing red or blue entry that you're going to get on this list. I'm sorry, we had to have one at some point, and now here we are. But yes, the phenomenal one has stepped up as the team captain of Monday Night Raw, and he turned up in, to be honest, what was the most over-top looking attire probably of the night. Yes, wearing a red colour scheme is one thing, but turning up with the Monday Night Raw logo emblazoned on both your pants and your jacket is another thing altogether, as well as a little C on his waistcoat because, of course, he was the captain of Team Raw. AJ Styles was taking this very seriously, even if the branding genuinely looked like someone had just got a bunch of Monday Night Raw stickers and just gone around and tagged everything that AJ Styles owns. But hey, he's phenomenal, and I'm not. Number 6, The New Day, Gears of War. Now you see, I told you that wasn't all just going to be brand warfare. Yes, we might have just got all red everything, shout out Eva Marie on AJ Styles, but this was the creme de la creme, in my opinion, from last night's Attires. As I'm sure you all may have seen at this point, The New Day are doing a collaboration with Gears of War, which features the trio in the game and sees them in New Day-esque armor. It looks pretty badass, to be honest. Absolutely fantastic. And this is kind of the brainchild of a bunch of different people. Yeah, of course, there's a collaboration going on between WWE, New Day, and Gears of War. But as always, we have to give a shout out to Jonathan Davenport, who has, of course, designed the New Day's gear throughout their entire run pretty much at this point. He apparently had a hand in the style guide, I believe, for the colour scheme, etc., that was used on the actual Gears of War armour that would eventually be in the game. An amazing moment for him, I would imagine. Check that off your list, Mr. Davenport, because now your gear is in a game as well as WWE. But let's dive into it a little bit more, because the New Day turned up in full Gears of War armor for their entrance, including Big E, I should point out, who technically is on a different brand, but I guess he was supporting his boys, so it's all right. But the whole gear was absolutely magnificent in the flesh. And anyone who had a keen eye might have noticed a few additions to the attire too, because Kofi came out with a box of bootios, which actually had Gears of War branding on the picture of the three that everybody's probably seen on social media, holding the guns, looking very badass indeed. But on top of that, Francesca actually got a bit of an upgrade, because for anybody who plays Gears of War, you'll know that she kind of, and of course she being Francesca the Trumpet, for anybody who's sitting there going, who the hell's Francesca? Francesca had been upgraded to sort of look like a Lancer, the chainsaw thing from Gears of War, which again was just ridiculously cool. How are these men doing this? They continue to evolve, they continue to get better, and every day, hey, are you ready for this? Is indeed a new day. Yeah, alright, I've made better puns than that, but still, this gear, top notch. Number 5, the Street Profits. Blue is the colour. Now we go from the brilliance of the New Day last night over to their opponents at Survivor Series 2020, who are, of course, the Street Profits, who are famous, let's be honest at this point, for wearing the colour scheme of Monday Night Raw. We've seen them a lot on that programming, and that was the brand that they were sporting throughout literally the majority of their run there. But they are now, of course, on the blue brand, so change was in the air. Now, before anything else, let's just give a nod to how beautiful the gear actually was itself, because they managed to incorporate the white of the SmackDown brand as well into the gear. Lots of white, lots of blue, just delicious in every meaning of the word. But most importantly, I think we were all curious to know, now that they're on SmackDown and we were going to get brand warfare, what colour was the cup going to be that they were going to be drinking out of? Was it going to be red, because that's your typical one? No, of course it wasn't. It was blue. Although it does look like maybe they might have struggled, because we didn't get loads of blue cups. We just got one big, lighter blue than you would expect cup, which tells me it might have been more difficult than they'd first planned. Either way, this was good. It makes the list, and they beat the New Day on the night, so I guess it worked. Number 4, Sasha Banks, the blueprint. Now, to say that Sasha Banks has managed to break through another ceiling and reach another level of greatness in WWE right now would be 100% accurate, because she is operating on another level along with Bayley, of course. And one thing you might have noticed about Sasha Banks is she always dresses to impress. She knows how to dress for the occasion, and she is the champion of SmackDown right about now, the women's champion on SmackDown. It's important that she does just that, and she incorporated all of this and more into her attire. Yes, okay, she was wearing blue. We get it, we know the drill here. But on top of that, there was some little details in here that I thought were just absolutely sublime. The colour blue may well have been the through line on her attire, but there was also some other colours in there that you probably spotted, black and gold being the most important ones. Now, obviously, the gold of a champion kind of makes sense, but let's be fair here, black and gold is also the brand of NXT, where Sasha Banks got her start, and let's have it right, the brand that essentially made her one of the best women's wrestlers on the planet today. It's no coincidence that that is included in her gear. She never forgets her roots, and the woman is at the top of her game right now. She should be wearing the colours of the best brand. Number 3, Paul Heyman, True Colours. Paul Heyman has been working as the advisor to the tribal chief Roman Reigns on SmackDown for quite a bit of time now, and it has yielded some incredible results. Roman Reigns is now the Universal Champion, and that seems to have been the end goal. But one thing Paul Heyman has taken his time to do, through his performances on screen, is let us know that maybe this monster of his is getting a little bit out of hand. How many times have we seen Paul Heyman looking like he's made a terrible mistake as Roman Reigns beats someone's head into literal pulp? Now I put it to you that Paul Heyman's attire last night might have suggested where his mind is right about now, because he may have been wearing all navy blue attire on the outside. Just the majority of him looked navy blue, so you'd probably think at first glance the guy is obviously supporting his brand and his tribal chief. But look a bit closer, my friends. The tie and handkerchief of Paul Heyman's attire, both bright red, along with the phone case on his mobile phone we saw during the backstage promo. I hate to say it, but Paul Heyman, I think, might have had one eye on a different brand and it wasn't SmackDown. I think he was rooting for Drew McIntyre last night, because at the back of his mind, I feel like Paul Heyman knows this tribal chief of his is getting way out of hand and cannot be controlled. And let's be honest, Brock Lesnar was always on the red brand, and I bet he's still got a bit of a soft spot for him too. Number 2, The Undertaker's funeral procession. Of course, one of the biggest talking points of last night was the final farewell for The Undertaker. 30 years since he debuted at Survivor Series 1990. Here we are in 2020. The man is still going. Oh my, how he's still going. But maybe, just maybe, this is actually the final farewell. I mean, I find it hard to say that seriously, but let's just imagine for this one particular time that it is. And we got a lot of Undertaker's old foes and friends in the ring, and the one theme throughout the majority of them was that they were all dressed in black, very much like funeral attire, very much like the dead man would probably want for a send-off, because he's not going to be sent off in a glorious way. This is the mourning of the loss of a great WWE career. We also got a few choice Undertaker bits and bobs. We got the Godwins, for God's sake, who had the dungarees and black t-shirts underneath. We had the Godfather, Charles Wright, who came out in a black suit but a purple hat to go with it. We also got JBL, who had his purple shirt and purple Undertaker tie on to go with it. Again, lots of nods left, right and centre. Jeff Hardy came out with face paint that sported the dead man's logo, the iconic Taker T, white-faced black logo, all very nice touches. Even Mick Foley, wearing his sort of trademark red and black checkers, had a black waistcoat over the top. Not everybody could kind of squeeze it in, but you know, Ric Flair does what he wants to do. But most of them were wearing black. But amongst that mix of mostly black suits, there was one who stood tall. Kane came out in full gear, which I can only imagine might have been one last rib from The Undertaker. Just like, go on, go out in your full gear, because I guess it makes sense. It would look weird if the dead man had come out and Kane had just been stood there looking like the mayor of Knox County or whatever he is. That would have been odd. But yeah, this was quite interesting. The rest of them probably could have done with coming out in gear, I guess, but the black suits kind of made sense. And number 1, Vince McMahon, final farewell. Now, there are many people who will tell you that The Undertaker was Vince McMahon's greatest creation, and while I'm sure there are a few candidates for that list, a 30-year career of a dead man who has reinvented himself time and time again, you'd probably be hard-pressed to argue. So it seemed only right that Vince McMahon would come out and say a few final words to see off the dead man as he shuffled off this mortal coil to go somewhere else, presumably onto Instagram, to take pictures of himself with tigers in a swimming pool or whatever it was. Still though, let's get back to the sincerity here, because Vince McMahon said a few words. He might have ushered everybody else out of the ring without them doing anything, but he came back and basically gave one last hat tip to The Undertaker, who in fairness, he's probably had his fair amount of money out of at this point, and he was sporting the colour scheme of the dead man's new generation era look. If you listen carefully, you can already hear Michael Hamflett's erection intensifying, because the grey, purple and blacks that were incorporated into Vince's look came straight from the dead man's old attire. Specifically, the tie seemed to incorporate quite a few, and you know what it is? It's a nice little touch. McMahon didn't necessarily have to come out there and put the spotlight on himself. Ha! Listen to me talking rubbish. Of course he did. I guess he didn't have to say a big old goodbye to the dead man, but he did. He took the time, and to be honest, it's probably the least he could do for him. So there you have it then. Those are all of the hidden meanings, some less hidden than others, behind the attires from WWE SummerSlam 2020. As always, I'm sure we probably missed a few, or maybe they just didn't make the cut. Let us know your thoughts about all of them and anything we missed and anything you think should have had a nod in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and share. Hit the old subscribe button if you haven't already. You can find the original article for this. That's by Michael Hamflett, and it's at whatculture.com/WWE. You can also follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, or if it's your thing, you can follow me on Twitter at It's Adam Nicholas, or maybe you just want some more videos, and if you do, there should be some just after this one. I've been Adam Nicholas, this has been WhatCulture Wrestling, and unlike The Undertaker, allegedly, I'll see you next time.